well, New York isn't that far away, and it's nice to be in Hamburg again. It's a beautiful city. And also I was really motivated because so many of my European colleagues are here who I haven't seen for a long time. And it was very nice to kind of see everyone again. So I'm not really going to talk about my practice. The jury discussion we had when we were talking about the prize for best office or the best career was an interesting discussion, and of course we picked Catherine as the best office, deservedly, but we had a great discussion because of Strelka and the kind of other office that we had, and we were looking at the offices and how they practice, and it was very interesting because there's a lot of I think redefinition and a lot of experimentation going on in terms of what an office is these days. And we saw a lot of young offices that are very collaborative. They don't have a hierarchical structure. And those were very compelling and interesting. Most of them are young offices and haven't had enough longevity to prove the vitality of the idea. Strelka was an interesting one for us because they are successful and they're operating really outside of what we normally think of as the office practice or the office type in the world, because they're actually operating sort of as an agent helping activate projects, but they're not designing. And so we thought that was a very interesting proposition. But in the end, I think that the jury was really looking for a body of work that produced projects that really made a difference, that really mattered, that really spoke in some way, that touched people. And we were also really looking for projects that and practitioners that were searching for originality or something that hadn't been done before, that there wasn't clear precedent for. And the other thing that I think that we were interested in was that clearly there's a lot of work going on internationally with strong environmental design and strong social design, and a lot of that work is very competent. It's very high-level service, but it doesn't always transcend to the level of art or a strong expression. And so we were really looking for projects that had personal vision and expression that brought forth the agendas of the social and environmental. So that's kind of the discussion we were having when we were talking about your work and when we selected you. I have I'm an American, so I have an American view, and in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was starting my practice, the Americans were looking toward Europe because it's weird. The Europeans tell me they look toward America, but the Americans, we were looking toward Europe for new ideas, and we were particularly interested in Europe because Europe seemed to be much more theory-oriented in the practice of landscape and much more conceptual in terms of ideas driving design. And we Americans felt insecure that we weren't doing that. We were more service organization. And it was magazines like Paysagistes that were really significant for Americans. And Topos magazine was really significant for Americans because it gave us access to what was happening in Europe, what was coming out of the Versailles School, and later what was coming out of ETH school, and those people. And so Catherine's work and her role in Paysagistes plays a big role, I think, in sort of what we were consuming in America and sort of the agendas that it was setting up for us. I don't have a very good biography to give of you, because I think you'll probably tell the story better than me. But Catherine Mosbach is a graduate of the Versailles School. She was a student of Michel Courgeot, co-founder of Paysagistes. many important projects, which you'll see, and was on the cover of the MoMA Groundswell catalog, which gave her great prominence for people who didn't know her. And also in the French Legion of Honor, which is something I find kind of mind-boggling, but really wonderful. So with that, I will turn it over to you.
Hello, I'm very pleased to be there to share with you different landscape strategy. Thanks a lot for Landezine teams and the jury member. Landscape for us has something to do with masses. Masses of clouds, masses of air, of light, of humidity. And for us, the landscape strategy is a way to translate that masses. It's not only to do with a large scale, so that's the planet scale. It's to do with a way to engage a dialogue with all that different elements. At 2011, we won the competition with Philip Ram on Taiwan island. We are here. And the way to understand the masses is the way what you see over, under the sky, over the feet, and under the sea level. Not only what you see in front of you, but what you are all around your bodies. As we are in Taiwan, tropical humid climate, we are nearby the most important current of the world is the Kuroshio, and that current makes a specific climate of Taiwan, crossing the main chain of the mountains. And as we are in a specific place, we wanted to introduce a design process, phase shift parks, linked to that specific place and playing by the atmosphere design and the lithosphere design. We are in Taichung. I don't know, the pointer doesn't work. Oh, see. We are in Taichung. It's along the main chain of mountains and between a small colline. At the beginning, when we do the competition, we understood it was only a piece 250 hectares, that one. And in fact, after developing the project, we understood it's 3 times 250 hectares. It means a park for approx 1,000 hectares, a new piece of land, engaging new urban development. That's the stage for a few months, and that's what happened when it's heavy rain, typhoon, in construction stage, so everyone is stressed, everyone is anxious. What happened? What can we do with? And that happens regularly, every regular months. And our goal with lithosphere design and atmosphere design is to work with such kind of event and to make adjust, including in regular life, urban life, that it's not a drama, that it's just what happened and we need to live with. As another point, so that the rain, the clouds crossing the mountains, and is a lot of just pebbles coming from the volcanic works, and you see 100% dry soil without nutriment, without foods, and just the place we need to develop life process, so not evident to engage life process. By sure, we use the element we are dealing with, so means raining, stones, by just engaging some comfortable places and resorts. It was requested in the brief. I said before, landscape architects are used to give answer and translate the brief. The client addresses a brief, and one main scope was to keep all rainwater from the whole district, 250 hectares, to catch the rainwater and to keep on place. So that means, even if it was a previous area, it was an airport, so 100% impermeable hard soil, and means we engage the lithosphere design, soil, topography and rain to keep all rainwater on place coming from the district and falling down on the park. And to do that, it was necessary to equilibrate it, cut and fill, to make lithosphere beds. So the cut and the fills is 4 months going through north from south and introducing a continuous land from north to south. It's approximately 2.6 kilometers from here to here. So on the right side, you have the different water events. So when it's regular time, just part of is full of water. When it's exceptional, even 25% of the park is full of water. And when it's really, really exceptional, it's 80% of the park full of water. I hope I will see what happened when the park is finished, because it's like a path about flood level going through ocean in the heart of a city center. You see that all districts are linked to the park by catching that water, cleaning with phytoremediation beds, and making direct infiltration in the topographic beds. In tropical humid climates, the engineers are used to push away very quickly the water to the sea, what is really bad because before they had mountains with a lot of forest, and the forest and the trees catch the water and make infiltration. But since they do economic profit with the trees, no more forest on the mountains, and they push very quickly away the water in the sea level. So no more rainwater in the water table, and in a few decades of years, it's no more safe water to drink. So that drama is as dramatic. And I have a lot of struggle with the engineer because I always used to push the water away, and I said, no, please, you need to keep the water on place and to infiltrate where the water falls down and not pushing away. So that was typically the way to engage the design process from that park, linked nearby from all districts. The further district, because at that time is nothing, it's just roads and just ready to engage a construction process. That is the trees linked to the way we engage different resorts. Atmosphere design, much more developed by Philip Ram, means when we have done the lithosphere design, it was mounds and topographic beds. Transolar do a simulation by testing where the wind is more fast, where the shadow is more dense, linked to the further skyline. And we engage at that time different 3 resorts, some much more in shadow for leisure lands, some much more far away from the traffic for lead polluted lands, for the child play lands, and some much more far away from the humidity from the ponds and the topographic beds, much more linked to the sport lands, where it's a little bit less humid. And we engage that program linked with specific species of trees who absorb more or less the air, or with large leaves to make more shadows, or with trees transforming the pollution of the airs. On the same time, in addition with that 3 resorts, we try to find links with specific new districts for residential district, financial district, and a large promenade for 400 meters linking university campus to high technology campus. Means all the design process is deeply linked to very specific technical tools and to the way the further inhabitants can invest such kind of area. Linked to the trees, the specific trees, you have a large range of soil finition, more or less porous, more or less smooth, more or less mineral vegetal. So that in that large area, you have different scale of gardens appropriate with the specific behavior. Such kind of program, suppose that you are drawing the park very, very precisely, what is not usual, because in general, when you have a large scale, 70 hectares or more, mostly you find just lawn, water, some furniture, and here, for example, the phytoremediation strata, you see here, the planting, each species is defined 30 centimeter by 30 centimeters. So that makes the company quite a little bit crazy because they are not used to play with landscape at that scale. You can see that the leisure lands are much more linked to a grid of trees with large leaves, and the sport land is much more linked to random trees with a kind of ficus that had aerial roots absorbing the humidity and just transporting the humidity from the outside under the roots. I speak about the specific promenade from east to west. You can see all that line is approx 4 kilometers drainage system, and the black points are manholes, so that you can always be under control about the emptiness of the drainage, so that when the rain arrives, it works to infiltrate it directly on the place. It was Green Corridor. It was done before by the architect Stan Allen, the US architect who makes the urban design before the park competition. Then with the lithosphere design, you have the large mounds, transforming the pebble on place, because the cotton field need to be on place. You can see that we had a lot of mounds of pebble need to be transformed on hills, and the topographic beds. I like to show the construction stages, because the way you engage the construction define very precisely the way you get after the result of the life. It's not only to show the render and what you want to get at the final point, because it's never a final point. It's always a life process transforming on each stages. That's a structure under the hills who makes the continuity from north to south and introduce a shelter over. You have continuity of landscape and species, animals, and human continuity. And under the shelter, you have protection against heavy, sunny places. So in each, for us, landscape design has always to engage many programs, not only one way to invest a place. That's under the shelter. It's a size about 2 hectares, so it means you have a very good sound reflection and can be transformed at night or at specific event like a nightclubbing or a music theater or parties for the inhabitant, as we struggle a lot that the traffic roads become a shared space with only 20 kilometers per hour, so the pedestrian can cross everywhere the curb and share the space and not only have traffic cutting the continuity of the park. You can see that it was not a subject to make bridges and tunnels. We don't care. We are landscaper. We are not architect nor engineering. And you can see the way to draw and to engage the continuity is to let open lines to make the continuities from north to south. So the middle yard. That was not usual way for the engineer to calculate the structure, and they were not as so happy with me. But anyway, we do it. At the beginning, we don't want it to have columns. We wanted to use the earthwork with the pebbles like a foam system. And they asked, okay, please go back to much more traditional structural. And the only way I found to dissolve the columns, because I'm not architect, I'm landscaper, is to introduce different scales of diameter so that it's a continuity between the canopy outside the trunks of the trees and the canopy inside the shelter. Eastern Sky Dome is one very important large piece. It really looks like a mountain, but just artificial build-up. I go fast. All that design strategy embedded the places for cultural facilities, especially the cultural center with Sana and the latest Taiwan Tower. I really think it's very important to show that stages, the process of construction, because you understand how it's built up and what is behind the final scheme. For me, it looks like an acupuncture of the skin of the further spark, and what it lays open at system to evolve, because you have many, many different ways to work the vertical section and the horizontal development from north to south. By the way, you will never see that anymore because it will be full of foliage and trees, so it will be full 100% of trees canopy. So that's the reason you have much more in the further life an horizontal point of view, and here it shows the different elements we push together to introduce a biologic life. That's today. You have a field of photovoltaic bringing independently the whole lighting of the whole park. That place was not expected as an exceptional place because they asked us to put 450 places of parking north and south. And just to show that even you have a program like 450 places of parking plots, it's always the way you play with, you draw with, that it makes landscape or not landscape or just a parking plot like a shopping mall. That's the situation today. So you can see the photovoltaic field. Installation linked to Rudolf Steiner 12 suns, like that is a movement. But in between, you will have in the further years a conventional center. So that kind of vision, it's just the construction situation. It was a continuity of soil overlapping, but on the same level, on the field level, so through the pavilions for different activities like pedagogic activities for children or for sport or for yoga or such kind of things. You can see that we were very lucky to translate it more than 1,500 existing trees like ficus, and that makes the park immediately showing different ages of life evolution with baby trees and really much more older trees. You can see that that is a further district. So today it looks like a large landscape, but tomorrow we will have towers, housing, offices, and linked to the northern lounge, where 12 meter high. When we will have the district, it will have another total other skyline. The second place is a very small pocket of garden in South Korean, Ulsan, just to show you that the way to play and to engage the dialogue with the element is not linked to the large scale, but is linked to the way you put together different membrane of exchanges between different flows. The name of that small piece was lost in transition because, as in Korean, it's that there are a lot of mountains. 70% of the country is mountain, so not a lot of place for urban development and buildings. And the river was a very, very powerful link between the mountains and the seaside. And to protect, again, overflows water, they make everything hard, means the river become concrete edges, and the spontaneous landscape become only lawn, and they blocked the overflows system with 100% bamboos. So it becomes very neutral situation. And I wanted to show them that in the previous ages, the way they represented with maps, the landscape is much more open mind to a braving between outside and inside, between the human activities and the milieu existing activities. So we show the different places along the river to show what they had before and what they lose by making everything neutral or with green washing, just to introduce in that small pocket, I think it's 500 square meters, so it's nothing linked to Taiwan situation. And to show that the landscape morphing is not linked to very heavy elements. On the left side, you have a small piece of soil, asphalt, water, and seeds. In the spring side, it's Cité Internationale in Paris. So very, very common places, and even in the linked to the season, you have very a fantastic vision. And on the right side, you have a very basic, a small river. In winter, it was very, very cold in winter last January. And you can see the power of the cold air with the wind. When the water becomes frozen, the wind just pushes the stone away and making a very powerful drawing just with nothing, just with the element. And we feel that that's a way to engage the landscape process. On the left, you have an engineer, hydraulic engineer, Theodor Schwenks, a German one, 1963, who demonstrates that the heart of a human, here on the top, is a cut through the heart of a human. It's quite similar as a section through the Alps. Here you have 25 kilometers long and 9 kilometers depth. So means the exchanges of flows between air and liquid is the same processes for human as for minerals, as for vegetables. That is the flows between cold air and hot air and through a channel. So it means we are just similar. We are human, but we are just on the same level of braving between the different gas exchanges and light and air. And I feel our landscape process as just to engage such kind of situation, to make the consciences of inhabitants clear that we belong to a one system. That's what we try to do in that small piece of garden with small pockets of asphalt, because asphalt is a very good nutriment for mosses. I don't know why, but in fact it happens. And to engage different situation of vegetation evolution. That's the place. And what happened, it was early April, so the seeds don't come out, but what could be a small piece of garden on the feet of the large months. And finally, the Louvre Lens is a very specific example, bringing together architecture and landscape, economy and culture, and natural processes linked to culture. That was a drawing on the competition frame. We do the competition with Sana 2005. It's a mine pit. Sorry, I come back. All that pieces are mine pits linked together with rider seams, means cavalier for the transportation of the material. And you can see that it's a very industrial terrain. And when someone asks you to do a garden here or a landscape with a very important museum, you are just asking, okay, the plot is really, really bizarre. It looks like a mushroom. How can you do something nice with such kind of situation? And the only way I propose as landscaper is to forget the limit of the plots and just to use the way they develop the transportation of the material to sell material in the harbor and the station, and to go through the plots, through the lobby, through the galleries, like a transition from one position to another. So you are never in front of a monument or of a piece of art. You are always of passage, in transition, traveling, going through different ages, going through different knowledge, going through different experimentation. That's the 3 layers, so the economical strata. The activity was stopped for 30 years ago, and when you stop and you let a poor soil, means the rubble of the mine system, open to the air, the rain, and the light, the vegetation power just come back and engage the biologic process and with a spontaneous wood. And that was the reason the jury, before the competition of architecture and landscape, they do competition with the cities, and that city wins the competition because of the capacity of facility to engage an urban renewal for 5,000 hectares. And as landscaper, we don't want to cover the cultural level with the Louvre, because Louvre is a very important brand in the international world. And we want to cover that layer by the layer of ecological system or the layer of mine pit. We wanted to play the different layer together. And that was the hypothesis with that park, just to show together that economy is as cultural as piece of art coming from all around the world. And same ecology or plants or life system is as cultural as Louvre-Lens. That project is sample that we can develop one concept, both for landscape and both for buildings. So Sana proposed, we were agreed together at the competition that the building, the lobby of the building is a public space in the center of the plots, so that the entrances are not only back and the main entrance and second entrance, it was open on the 4 cardinal points, north, east, south, east, so that all the whole inhabitant all around enter very easily in the museum. So you can see that the drawing, the design of the place is deeply linked to the way to go through different experiences, through the landscape, through the lobby, until the piece of art going back again to the landscape and going home or on your specific countries. Here, like in Taiwan, they ask us to keep all rainwater on place. We have a 1% slope from west to east. From west to west, you have around 800 kilometers. So means the only way we found to keep the rain on place is to multiply the holes in hard soil to catch the water, and same as Taiwan, to nourish the water table. Oops, sorry, I do a bad. That was at the opening of the museum, 2012. So the west parvis, you can see that we arrived to mix the parvis with the technical stuff, because you have as much on the basement under the museum as on the ground floor. So you have a lot of technical stuff mixed with gardens. Another important piece is by digging the basement for the building, we put out a lot of silt. And for the program of the museum, we are supposed to build up fences to protect the piece of art against bad behaviors. And as you can imagine, in Versailles, the landscaper don't like to make fences, and we are supposed to find link between inhabitants, quite poor population, with Louvre-Lens. So it was in contradiction, making a fence and making links between outside and inside. And the only way we found to do that is to put a fence by landscape. So transforming the silt coming from the digging of the basement by a vertical limit, 2 meters limit. We agreed together with the architect that the subject was not a monument or not a nice park, but the subject was to bring the people to the galleries, and we found differently the way to dissolve the limits. So I dissolved the limit with earth, and they dissolved the limit with aluminium facade. That was at the opening 2012. You can see that the silt exposed on the air and the light and the humidity engage biologic process with bacteria, algae. And so the landscape process is really engaged in the vertical much more as in the horizontal position, what was quite unexpected, because we expected on the horizontal head of the wall. And that was 2014, coming along just by exposing silt on air, humidity, heat, and raining. So you see really that a mineral becomes vegetal just by the way you engage the design process. Same for the horizontal limit. As I said, that project is a very nearby connection between architecture and landscape. And to engage, so at the beginning we are suspected to make floating the building in the middle of a meadow, so full of light, only lawn. But as you can imagine, it's a lot of raining in north of France, so the Louvre was not accepted to make only meadows. So they asked us to make hard soil, and the only way we found to open hard soil to life is to play with a recessed joint, more or less large, and with holes, so that linked to the weather, you just open the skin of the soil to spontaneous mouse system and flowers, spontaneous flowers, etc. I go a little bit fast. So that's the north main entrance coming through the Cavaliers. So the people just use the same passes as the mineral exported to the harbors and the train station. The platforms, maintenance for the gardener. Another important scope is the building is in the middle of the terrain. We had a lot of nice trees linked to the abandoned mine system, and as landscaper, I struggle a lot to protect the existing trees because you are very lucky when you have existing trees when you do a park. And the worker of the companies don't care about the trees, and they hid a lot of trees. And the only way I found at that time, so it was only the construction of the buildings because the landscape is at the end of the process. We proposed, because we were stressed, because we have a lot of nice trees and they were just hidden by the devices, the machines. And I said to the client, so be careful, because if you do that, we will lose all our what we want to highlight. And I proposed with my team that the worker, different items in 12 languages, so that the worker each morning, a sound installation can make an item just to take care of the environment. It doesn't happen, and by sure the trees were killed and put out, and we lost a lot of environment linked to the hardness of the construction plates. That is to introduce an installation we do for Triennale of Milano. It's for us, landscaper, it's just clear that we are living in a live environment. Even if you don't see everything, our knowledge and expertise, just know that life is not visible, but it's here, and you need to take care of that. And on the Triennale, we used to gather that 12 languages with all that items we wanted the worker proposed each morning with the work of the bacteria, so the invisible work working for us, working for life surviving on the planet. And I just propose you that installation.
내가 본 것을 숨기지 마라. Cos'è questa montagna di muscoli che mi schiaccia? Come matterai dopo incitagarò. Suis un tigre dans meine Fleur. Achtung zur Seite, die Pflanzen wie strömt. Aua, meine Wurzel. Michel Hurle pas fort, je suis encore sourd. Marche, so atmen für dich. Aua, meine Wurzel. Tu me casses mes aiguilles. Hurle pas fort, je suis encore sourd. Aua, meine Wurzel. You have a very good sono, je suis spostati da lì. 잘 될 것임을 확신하고 모든 것은 가치가 있어. Aua, meine Wurzel. Cerca molto un tesoro, nascosto sotto il terriccio. Schick das Werk, damit wir uns beim Arbeiten zuhören können. Nuga bujuda, trakut
Thank you.